I'd rather have 5 raving fans that are run through walls for me than 500 people out there that just know of me and think mediocre things.
Welcome to the Cleaning Up Podcast, Millionaire Secrets of the Home Services Industry. Brought to you by me, Ron Holt, CEO and founder of Two Maids and a Mop, America's fastest growing cleaning company. I get a chance to sit down with home service industry pros and other entrepreneurial leaders so they can share their stories, their insight, their experiences. It's so much fun. You're going to learn so much. And you're going to be inspired to take your small business into a national brand just like I did. Okay, guys, we're here with another, I think, exciting guest that everyone's going to really be excited to hear from today, mainly because everything we're going through as a country, everything we're going through together as business owners, all the customer service, all the customer experience initiatives that we're challenging ourselves with. Today's guest will do nothing but solely focus on that initiative. And so I'm excited to have John Ruhlin in. John is the author of a best-selling book called Giftology, The Art and Science of Using Gifts to Cut Through the Noise, Drive Referrals, and Strengthen Retention. He's also the founder of Ruhlin Group, which is a gift-giving logistics business, a VIP gifting program for businesses just like us. And he's worked with some really high-profile clients, such as the Chicago Cubs, the San Antonio Spurs, Caesars Palace, St. Louis Blues, Morgan Stanley, on and on and on. And so, John, welcome to the Two Maids and a Mop podcast.
Hey, Ron. Thanks for having me, man.
You bet. All right. So let's cut to the chase here. What makes you the expert on gift giving? Let's go back in time and talk about those Midwestern roots and give people a reason to believe that when you talk about gift giving, that they should listen.
Yeah, well, I would say one thing, most people in business, their tendency is they think, oh, gifting, that's kind of cute. And so we're in a sandbox that most people think doesn't matter, because most people at the end of the day aren't waking up thinking about gifting. And they're like, why does that matter to my company? Whether you're running a franchise or whether you're running $1 billion brand, business owners and leaders, small, mid, large, are like, who cares about gifts? But everybody cares about the outcomes, and everybody says that they care about relationships with customers, employees, clients, prospects, you name it. And so, if you say relationships matter, how you show gratitude and love and appreciation to those relationships oftentimes can dictate whether or not you get a referral or whether you get repeat business or whether you get an engaged employee. And so the core of what we talk about, like people are like, oh, gifting, who cares? I'm like, well, do you care about referrals? Do you care about retention? They're like, oh yeah, we care a lot about that. And so my roots go back to being on a farm. I'm a farm kid from Ohio. I didn't grow up around the gifting business. It's not like my daddy started it. And, I was hanging out at the country clubs and hanging out with pro sports teams growing up. I grew up baling hay and, eating from a 1-acre garden that we did ourselves and heated our house with wood. So I learned early on in life what I didn't want to do for the rest of my life. I hated blue collar work, but I did it because that's what you do when you grow up on a farm. You just suck it up and make it happen. And so I wanted to go make money. And when you're poor, you think the only people that make money are doctors and lawyers. At least that's what a farm kid, me thought. And so my mom was into health and wellness before it was cool and hip and before Whole Foods. And so I was going to go make mom proud and be like a DO or a chiropractor or something more in the health and wellness, but, medical space. And out of desperation, I didn't really consider myself a salesperson or a business person. I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was, but I went to go sell Cutco knives, which I had no idea what Cutco was, but, I found out, a $300 million company. They had 1.5 million reps and distributors, worked with the product over 70 years. And a buddy of mine who was a seminary student was selling them. And he was the antithesis of a salesperson. So I was like, if Steve Wiggers can sell these knives that are like crazy prices, then maybe I could too. And so I went and pitched my girlfriend's dad, who is an attorney. And if you've never pitched your girlfriend's dad knives, it's one of the most awkward conversations you could possibly walk into, but I was desperate. And Paul was an attorney, but he made all of his money in town. And he was like the most generous person I'd ever met. Like he would find deals on noodles and give everybody at church the next Sunday, 20 cases of noodles. I'm like, Paul, that was like 30 grand in noodles that you just gave out. And he's like, I know, but did you see their smiles? And I'm like, yeah, who's not going to smile? Like even the most evil person on the planet would smile if they got a year's supply of noodles. So Paul like magically owned oil wells and banks, and like every deal came his way. Like he was the most top of mind liked person. So I thought, Paul's always giving things away. Maybe he'll have mercy on me and order his top 100 clients that are all men. They're CEOs of companies and businesses. Maybe he'll order a pocket knife. And so I work up the courage on a Sunday morning before church and pitch him this idea. And he got like this little twinkle in his eye. It didn't make me feel uncomfortable, even though it was awkward as all get out. And he said, John, I don't want to order pocket knives, I'll order paring knives. I'm like, Paul, you want to give a bunch of grown men CEOs and business owners a kitchen tool? I'm like, why? And he said, John, in 40 years in business, the reason I have more referrals, access, and deal flow is I found out if you take care of the entire family in business, everything else takes care of itself. So it was at that moment, I'm like, I'm going to model what Paul's doing and use this crazy knife company as my launching pad to start teaching people how to use gifting and gratitude and appreciation as a competitive advantage. And that's what we did. We did it over the next 3 years. We started to invest in these crazy gifts for people and started to get access to CEOs. And by the time I was a senior in college, I had become, out of 1.5 million sales reps and distributors in their 70-year history, we became their number one all time in the history of the company by applying what we now call the Giftology system, which is really just a methodology of how to use gifting, gratitude, and appreciation to drive and grow your business, whether it's in the valleys like we're now in right now, or whether it's on the mountaintops. It was using these principles that have been around for thousands of years, but systematizing them in a way that was able to stand out and kind of like break through the noise and the clutter and deepen these relationships. And so that's what our company to this day is. You know, I love small business because I bootstrapped the business for the last 19 years of doing this.
Well, that's got to ring home for a lot of our franchisees. Like you said, we're in a valley right now. We're going through a real crisis, and it's hard to know exactly what the long-term future even is. Certainly, the short term is a little bit cloudy here for everyone. We're going to talk, hopefully, by the end of this interview, about some things that we may be able to do as a team, as a group, to really capitalize on that valley using this exact approach to creating a really memorable customer experience. But before we get to that, I still want to really reinforce some of the case studies, some of the examples that you talk about in your book. I'm a super book nerd, so I haven't just read your book. I've read it multiple times, and I've given it out to way too many people. And
Thank you.
I'll be able to give it out more after this interview, but it's an easy read. It makes so much sense. The one thing that really drew me in very quickly was the 1-800-GOT-JUNK story. And I believe, obviously, since we're in a very similar line of business, that's probably one of the reasons I related so well to it. We know, some of the executives at that brand as well. And
Yep.
So I'd love for you to sort of tell a little bit about that story, because it sort of tells you both ends, because if I remember correctly, you had a little bit of a miss on the original gift to the COO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, but then sort of recovered from that and used that to almost parlay it to everything you're doing now. So
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is when that happened, when I met Cameron, the COO, at an EO event. So EO is like YPO or Vistage. It's a CEO, peer group. And I was like, I want Cameron, when I heard him speak, I was like, I want him to not just be a client. I want him to be a mentor, an advisor, a consultant. And I can't afford like his, $10,000, $20,000 a month coaching. And I'm like, I need to get him in my corner. And so I found out that, I invited him because he was coming to Cleveland. I met him in Vegas, and I found out 4 months later he was going to be coming to Cleveland to speak to our local chapter. I'm like, the night before, we have LeBron, ticket. We had Cavs tickets, and LeBron was in town at that time, and lower level. It's opening night for the Cavs, and I'm like, we'll go to a steak dinner and a ball game, thinking like that's gonna, at the end of that, we'll be like brothers. And when I invited him, he's like, I guess I don't have anything else going on. I guess I'll go. And I'm like, duh, like every business owner or business leader or thought leader goes on 100 dinners, maybe not this year, but most years. You go on 100 dinners and you go to, 50 conferences and 20 rounds of golf, and it all kind of blurs together because everybody follows the same playbook of entertaining. It's like dinner, ball game, like steak dinner, conference, all that kind of stuff. So on the spot, I was like, Cameron, what else are you going to do when you're in town? And he's like, John, I'm probably going to go shopping. And so I'm thinking, well, this is my angle. Where are you going to shop at? And he said, I'm from Canada and there's not a ton of Brooks Brothers. I'm probably going to go to Brooks Brothers. And so on the spot, I'm like, hey, I'm a Jose Bank fan. I want to send you a shirt. What's your shirt size? And he looks at me like a little bewildered, like, does this dude have a man crush on me? Like, it's a weird question to ask another man, like shirt size within like 2 minutes of meeting somebody. But the Canadian kind of like politeness came through, and he didn't make me feel like an idiot. He actually told me. And so I'm like, hey, can't wait to see you in 4 months. And the morning of that he's supposed to be flying in 4 months later, he's texting me, my flight's delayed. I'm going to get in late. Do you just want to cancel? I'm like, he's trying to get out of the dinner and the ball game. And I said, no, whenever you get in, like, no problem. And so I'm like, man, I have to do this thing. And I went up to, it was probably 5 hours before Cameron's getting into town. I drive to Brooks Brothers. I put down the AMX and the piece of paper. And I'm like, here's the guy's sizes. I want everything in your new fall collection, all your jackets, suits, belts, pants, everything. And they think I'm joking. And I'm like, no, for real, like with a deadpan face. I'm like, I wish I was joking. I want it all. And they ring it up at $7,000 in clothes. We go to merchandise his hotel room at the Ritz to look like a Brooks Brothers store, jackets here, pants, suits. And I'm down in the lobby, and I'm not a big drinker, but like I'm nervous as I'll get out. My business partner, who just bought half the business, it's 2008. So things are kind of like starting to get rough financially. And I'm drinking like a triple on the rocks. And he's in my business partner's in my ear, like, he's going to think you're a stalker. This is the worst idea ever. It's going to blow up in our face. And Cameron gets in, he goes and takes a shower, comes back down, and his eyes are like the size of silver dollars. He's like, whatever you want to talk about, for as long as you want to talk about it, I'm all ears. I've never had anybody treat me and make me feel the way you made me feel. He's like, I've already texted pictures to 2 other authors to change the story in their book about customer experience. And so we go, we went to dinner, the ball game. We ended up missing because it was too late. And I continued to follow up with gifts over the next 5 years, probably 100 different gifts. Every quarter I'd send them something different, probably to $20,000 worth of gifts, which people are like, $20,000, like that's insane. And I'm like, well, I did the math the other day, and it's produced over 7 figures for us. It's been a 50x ROI. And so I'm like, show me a Facebook ad campaign or a billboard ad or a magazine or any other thing in your business where you get a 50x ROI. And I'll start doing that too, because the power of, I basically now have Cameron as a sales rep for me. And I could, if I paid him $2 million a year, he wouldn't become a sales rep for me. But with $20,000, I was able to get somebody to be a sales rep for the last literally like 12 years. And the reason we're speaking on some of the biggest stages in the world, anywhere from 35 grand to 70 grand, depending upon where we're at, is because guys like Cameron have become ambassadors and are fully bought into seeing us win and succeed. Like literally this week alone, I had 2 different emails from Cameron introducing me to large organizations saying, hey, I brought up Giftology and John Ruhlin on the last webinar I did in front of a few hundred business owners. They wanted to talk to you. Here's, please connect with John. Like I couldn't pay for that.
Right.
And so, $20,000 is a radical example. We don't spend $20,000 on everybody, but there are things that you can do with every relationship. Sometimes they don't even cost money to personalize and make somebody feel something that they can't unfeel. And when you can start to do that with people that are in your community, whether that's locally or nationally or internationally, and get those people to be pillars of your community that are advocating, it's so powerful, the ripple effect of that through the valleys and on the mountaintops as well.
And you keep saying that word feel. And I think that's the one thing that people, once you can really get past the idea of just giving someone a gift, if you can truly embrace that you're actually giving them a feeling, that is a whole nother stratosphere, in my opinion, because
we get, as business owners, as leaders, we get so caught up in KPIs and, analysis of data. It's very difficult. I mean, there was no mathematical model that should have told you to expect any type of ROI on that $7,000 of apparel, right? No. But that feeling that Cameron experienced has allowed you to earn millions of dollars in all sorts of different ways. And no model should have said that is possible. And so to me, that's for a franchisee listening, to any business leader listening, if you can really get past the data part and really think about, what do I want someone to feel when they receive our service or our gift? That to me is the easiest way to sort of embrace this and accept it, because it is a different way of thinking. Most business leaders don't think like you.
No. Well, it's weird. I mean, it feels uncomfortable. Most business leaders, especially if they're dudes, like they're very linear and tactical and very like they want to follow a basic math equation. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you think about, like, if you're married, you didn't win over your wife by showing her a spreadsheet. Like and yet we forget that in business, whether we're dealing with like employees or clients, like we're all dealing with humans, and we think we can do things in our business that is different than in our personal life. And we silo things, and we do things like we never go to a wedding and for the couple, take a Tiffany's vase and engrave compliments of, two maids and a mop, or Giftology. Like, that'd be the tackiest thing in the world. But we do that in business, and we think that we're branding and marketing and gifting, and we're somehow like doing something special. But what we're actually doing in a lot of cases, and we don't realize that people are humans and make decisions emotionally and then justify logically. Like, that's how we do things. Like, do I like this person? Do I trust this person? Like, it's just woven into our DNA. It's whether you're a person of faith or not, it's how God's wired us. And so the simple fact is that if you don't tap into somebody's heart first, then you're going to lose. You're going to lose the opportunity to really like get that, 10x, 50x, 100x. I've seen some cases 1,000x ROI from this, because people are, when they feel something, like, think about, like, if you feel loyal to your kids, you'll do anything for them, even irrational things for your kids, to see them succeed, because you're bought in emotionally. Whether it's your spouse or whether it's your favorite sports team, people will go spend irrational amounts of money for their favorite sports team because of their emotional buy-in and loyalty to that. And so somehow people think, well, in business, well, that doesn't matter. And like, the simple fact is if you can get somebody, now you can't, you have like charge 10,000% more and think because you bought in emotionally, like you still have to like perform, a product or service or whatever else at a consistent, reputable level. It's not like you can suck at cleaning or suck at junk removal and then you give a great gift and connect emotionally. Like, sometimes that can make things worse. But if all things are approximately equal and you have a great product or service and you can get somebody's heart, now all of a sudden, like, that's where somebody could literally tell, 25, 50, 100 people about you, because they're like, they didn't just do a great job on cleaning. Like, we kind of took that for granted. Of course, they're going to do a great job cleaning. They also saw that my dog needed water, and they got my dog water. Or it's the little things where somebody says, wow, these people care. These people are in my corner. These people are willing to look around and see what other problems they can solve. And when you can do that in any part of your business, like, that's where the magic starts to happen, where people like nobody brags when they're building a house that the siding's put on straight or that the windows don't leak, but they might brag that, like, you show up and, there's cleaning supplies waiting for you, or toilet paper, or like the guys who own 1-800-GOT-JUNK. One of the things I talked to Brian, the founder, when they were moving, they would call people the morning of and say, hey, we know you probably packed your coffee maker. We're stopping by Starbucks. How do you like your coffee? That $5 investment, people talked way more about that than the $5,000 worth of, moving services that they paid for, because it was that little detail, that little attention that said, hey, I realize you're a human being. How can I serve you in a way that you weren't expecting?
Yeah. And, one thing I'd like to unpack even in that, because it's just such full of amazing nuggets just in the last 5 minutes. the idea of branded gifts, we're all guilty of being real proud of ourselves, our brand, our logo, but that's also called swag for a reason. And so I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think anything negative occurs from giving out swag, but what positive things may not occur, and maybe is a better way to think of it. What are your thoughts on like sort of the authenticity, if that's a word, of the gift itself? Should it be branded? Should it not be branded?
Well, it depends on if you want it to be a gift or is it trinkets and trash? Is it a promo item? Is it swag? Most people, if you're dealing with affluent people, like they don't want your accounting firm or your cleaning, they're not going to go wear like a t-shirt or a polo shirt with, two maids and a mop proudly like displayed on it, because like that's not about them. It's about you. And so if you give something out with your logo on it, it's not a gift, it's a promotional item. And it's going to be treated as such. And the higher up the food chain you go, even when we're dealing with pro sports teams, we'll make them put the logo as small as possible, even though the logo in that case adds value. When you're dealing with affluent people, they want to be subtle. They want to wear something that they're proud of, from their name they're proud of, their sports team they're proud of. Are they really like excited to go, use something that has your corporate logo on it? No, because you're trying to turn them into a billboard for you. And the higher up the food chain you go, the more, more that's true. And so we tell people no logos. Put their name on it, put their initials on it, put their kid's name on it, put their pet's name on it. A gift by its very nature, like you never give a gift to your spouse or to your kids or to your, to the wedding couple is a great example. Like you wouldn't give a gift and it had your name on it. That'd be stupid. That'd be weird. That'd be uncomfortable. Well, if you want it to be a true gift in business, and, like there are the rules that you need to follow. If you're going to give a trinket out, then maybe you put your logo on it. But if you're going to give something to somebody, that's a best in class item, like I tell people all the time, like this is a radical example, but this proves the point. Like, Ron, if I sent you a Rolex after this interview, would I have to put Giftology on it for you to remember where it came from?
I'd be pretty thrilled without.
Yeah. I mean, you probably wouldn't, like you would tell that story to 1,000 people, and John Ruhlin and Giftology are nowhere on the watch. You would remember there'd be an emotional buy-in that would cause you to say, holy crap, I'm going to wear this, and now I have a story to tell. And every time I look at my wrist, subconsciously, I think of John Ruhlin and Giftology. And so if you're looking to have that emotional buy-in, no logos, it needs to be best in class. It needs to be personal with their name or something that's important to them, maybe a Bible verse, maybe their favorite quote, maybe their business logo that they put blood, sweat, and tears into. So a gift by its very nature is all about the recipient. And then guys are the worst at this. Like we give our wives like a 4-wheeler or a lawnmower for Mother's Day. And really it's not a gift for them. It's a gift for us. And that's another radical example. But in business, we do that all the time. Like if we like wine, we send wine to people. Meanwhile, you're sending it to people that don't drink. They're on a big health kick, so they're avoiding alcohol. Or their parents were alcoholics and you're actually pissing them off or offending them because you didn't think about who the person was. You thought about, hey, I like this. I think this is cool. And so it's not about what you think is cool. It's about what they'll actually use, what they'll think is cool, what they'll think is awesome 10 years from now. And so people will push back because to this day, like the New York Times asked us, like, John, what's the hot new sexy gift that you're selling a lot of on your agency side to companies to give out? And I said, the stupid knives. And they laughed. They're like, you're joking, right? Like that's what you did in college. And I'm like, to this day, we sell more knives than anything else in the world. And they're like, why? And I said, well, last time I checked, most people that we engage with in business, they're married, they have homes, they have kitchens. They don't wake up and go spend thousands of dollars on knives. And when we send it to them, it has their family name on it. It becomes an artifact that they use and talk about every single day for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. And if you use something once a day for 10 years, 600 impressions and top of mind awareness in the most intimate part of their home. So the stupid knives to this day will build out sets for people in the pro sports realm, small business. Like even right now in the Valley, people are like, John, you're probably struggling right now in gifting, right? Like, and nobody's spending money on gifts. And I'm like, well, a gift in the Valley, generosity in the Valley actually means more than if everybody's doing well. and on the mountaintop. And I said, also, everybody's stuck at home right now, cooking 3 meals a day, whether they want to or not. Guess what we're sending the most of right now? The stupid knives. Because everybody's, even if they don't like cooking, they have to cook because they're stuck at home. And so like the idea, and they're fearful, they're scared, they're like, what's going on? And a gift showing up out of the blue when everybody's stuck at home and fearful and says, hey, like I have your back. I was thinking about you. These are some of our favorite tools. Hope these are awesome for your family as you guys are doing more cooking at home. And now it's a conversation piece. Now that there's a story attached to it. No logos necessary. Nothing about the person who's giving it. It's all about the person who's receiving it. And that's the thought process when we're walking clients through, that pay us thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. We're talking them through these very simple concepts of, hey, these are human beings. I don't care the industry that you're in. What are they married? Do they have pets? Do they have kids? Oh yeah, they have all those things. Oh, great. So they're human beings. And even when we talk at Google, people will push back and be like, oh, John, does this work in technology? And I'm like, do you have human beings at your company? And they laugh. And of course they say, yeah. And I said, well, then it works. It works in Africa. It works in Ohio. It works in Florida. Now there's tweaks and differences depending upon the part of the world that you're in, but they're still human beings. We have hopes, fears, dreams. We have spouses, significant others, goals, homes. We eat food. There's some things that are common amongst being human. And those are the things that we try to tap into.
So let's talk about small business. And I've read maybe that your budget for your own business, your gifting program is your marketing program. The investment for you is it around $250,000? Is that accurate?
It was a couple years ago. It's more like double that right
wow. Now. Holy cow. So how can you help a small business owner relate to that?
Well, I started when I was in college, I started with $500 a month. So 19 years ago, I started with $500 a month, and people would be like, oh, so would you take that $500 and divide it by your, 500 clients and you send everybody a $1 item? Because that's what most people do when they're doing gifting. They take whatever budget they can scrape together or redirect from their marketing budget or whatever. It's it's $2,000 a month. And they're like, oh, I got 2,000, I got 200 clients. I got $2,000. I guess I got $10 a person to spend. And they send everybody a koozie or some, flashlight from China with a logo on it. And they send it off, and maybe they get a couple thank yous out of obligation. But most of it, like what they're giving is gifting guilt. People are getting this. They're like, really? Like I spend $500 a year or $1,000 a year or $10,000 a year with these guys. And they send me a, $11 flashlight with their logo on it that's going to fall apart in 6 months. Like that's their way of showing gratitude. So most people, when they're doing it, they spend money to actually offend people or annoy people or make people feel bad and guilty that they're going to re-gift it or throw it away or give it to Goodwill. And so our thing is, when I was doing $500 a month as a college kid, that was like a lot of money to me. I mean, a lot of money. And I would take that $500 and I'd buy 5 $100 gifts for the people I was meeting at Rotary or at Chamber of Commerce. Like I was joining Rotary at 20 years old, 21 years old. Like they almost didn't let me in because I was still in college, but I was running a real business. And so I had mentors that were advocating for me, saying, this kid in college is making more than, a third of this room. Like he's running a real business. Yes, he's still in college, but he's a business owner. And so that $500, being spent on 5 people, $100 gift going to 5 people. I would rather have 5 raving fans that are run through walls for me than, 500 people out there that just know of me and think mediocre things. And so most people do mediocre to the masses versus going all in on the few. So if I'm a small business owner, which I still am, like we're not a huge company, but we play with the Googles of the world and the Caesar's Palace and whatever else, because we gift like a king, we get treated like a king. It's a biblical principle, but it works in all parts of the world because most people, their gifting budget per item, they think they're going like bonkers spending $14.50 on brownies to send to their clients. Now, meanwhile, their clients, are avoiding sugar or are gluten, like they have a gluten issue or whatever else. And the person's getting like a box of brownies being like, man, I spent $1,000 on cleaning services last year and they sent me brownies.
Right.
Whereas if you take your top, let's say you had 100 clients and you take your top 20 and you said, hey, I'm going to invest, 2,000, or I'm going to spend, $2,000 this year. Well, now you can spend, on your top 20, you can spend $100 a person and do something maybe personal or significant or meaningful to each of those people. Maybe it's the same thing to all of those people. Maybe it's 20 customized gifts, where if somebody's into, animals, you're doing something for people will treat their cat or their dog better than most people treat a human. And maybe for the 5 people that it's all about their animals, it's customized to their animals. Maybe for the people that are really into their kids, it's something for, that ties into their kids' sports. Because I call it the inner circle. Like, if I try to take care of, just Cameron, I got to spend, like the guy did the Brooks Brothers for, I either got to go like all in at like a level 12, or I need to take care of his kids, his wife, his assistant, his pets, because those are the people, I call it the inner circle. And my original mentor, Paul, taught me, treat the inner circle well, and you could spend $100 on those people and have it be worth $100,000, because those people never get treated well and never get taken care of. And there's a leverage point there to do things. And that's why he always took care of the family, because most people would send bourbon and cigars and golf stuff. He would take care of the family. And the wife, in his case, became his internal sales rep, talking nonstop about the person. So it's not spending a ton of money. It's taking the amount of money that you're spending and making it personal, making sure that there's always a handwritten note. If you can't afford gifts, you should be sending the most thoughtful handwritten notes on the planet, which right now would be a great idea. If you can't afford gifts, like, in my opinion, our clients, we won't allow them to send out gifts to employees or clients unless there's a handwritten note. The handwritten note, in some cases, is more important than what you're sending. It provides context and meaning versus it just being a trinket showing up from Amazon in a box. That's not going to move somebody's heart, something that's automated, but something that shows up that says, hey, I think of you. I know you as a person. I appreciate the relationship. Like that, the handwritten note is what provides that context. So if I'm sitting here right now as a small business owner and like, what the heck am I going to do? I'm taking the time to handwrite as many notes as possible to people that are thoughtful, that are personalized to that person. I'm getting my kids to write the notes with me. I'm getting my staff to write the notes with me. Like that, to me, that it takes, whatever you pay for the paper. I use $9 letterhead that's made out of steel, but really a handwritten note anymore is rare. I would write as many thank you notes in April as I possibly could to those people to let them know, like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's how I appreciate you. That to me would communicate, wow, these guys are human beings and they're just like me. And out of anybody I'm going to stick with through this valley, I'm going to lean into and keep them around.
Well, you couldn't have ended with a better case study there, because we're actually going through that right now. Our entire franchisee network has been challenged for the month of April 2020 to really improve their customer experience, those relationships, and do that with gifting in a time when the world really needs positive energy. I believe, we all believe in our network here, that giving something positive will have a long-lasting effect. And we're not trying to give to get, but the reality is oftentimes that does occur. And so we're challenging ourselves, and I hope today's interview really sticks with franchisees. And I hope there's at least one person out there listening that will also go out and will pick up this book. I live by it to this day. And, there's a franchisee or 10 out there that hopefully has received a gift or two from us here at the home office. And, we do that because we love it. We like making you smile, but we also want you to feel that so that you can make someone else feel that same way, someone being your employees and or your customers. So, John, man, this was a true honor. I love everything you had to say today, and I absolutely love your book. And I hope that at some point down the road, we have a chance to give you an experience. I'd love to think that we could work together at some point, whether it be at one of our events or something else in some other way down the road. But I hope you're a big part of Two Maids and a Mop as we go forward, and I thank you for your time today.
Yeah, man. Well, I challenge people. Be radically generous with relationships for 3 years and come back to me and tell me it didn't pay off 10x. I think that, right now is the time that you get to see, like when your back's against the wall, you get to see who's got your back. And I think that it's not easy. There's no easy decisions right now for any business. There's only hard decisions left, but I think that, most businesses rise and fall in relationships. And so I hope you and your franchises are able to double down on the people that matter to them and go the extra mile for them right now. And whether that, just loving on people, it's really just another word for caring and showing that you care in a real tangible way. But man, I'm honored to be able to have a platform to be able to speak into people and hopefully, change some lives for the better, in any business, but, specifically small business. It's the heart, of the United States, and, where are living, working, and getting hired. So I hope your audience is able to take it and run with it. And I'd love to hear stories of what they end up doing with it and how it works for them.
You bet. All right, John, we'll make sure to share some of those stories with you. Thanks again for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron.
You bet.
Kyle Davis here from Business Development. Thank you so much for listening to the Cleaning Up Podcast. If you found this episode valuable, then please subscribe on your favorite listening platform, and please share it with your friends. If you're ever interested in going into business for yourself and purchasing a franchise, then don't hesitate to reach out. You can get a hold of me at phone number 205-870-8643, email KyleD@ineedamade.com, or visit us online at twomatesfranchise.com to learn more.